Folks, the Legacy of Destruction reveals just keep on happening, and I could not be more excited for the ones we are getting. It's Melodious support! I've done a video about them previously, and spoilers, it's one of Delilah's favorite archetypes, so I'm always on the lookout for cards that reinforce these older themes that are loved by me and the people that I love. There are some problems with the theme, though. They did try to update them with the release of the Melodious Link monster, but I found that it was more harmful than helpful. It locked you into Melodious summons, if I remember correctly, which meant that you couldn't branch out into a bunch of non-themed cards, and unless your theme does everything, it's better to have access to the toolbox than to not. I'm hoping that with a modern post-POTE card design mentality, these cards will be a lot more effective, easier to access, more impactful, all while not necessarily clashing with the older cards, though there are a few that I would cut. Personally, they're not all bangers. And it looks like we are starting out with a pretty good one that I was thinking about previously, Pendulum Monsters. So for those of you who are not aware, I would of course recommend watching the video, but Melodious's gain effects if they were special summoned. Otherwise, they're just kind of vanilla monsters, and one of the things that they did not get, despite being in the series that introduced Pendulum Monsters, was Pendulum Monsters, the things that would ideally enable their effects. Let's see if these match up with how they work. Level 4, Light Fairy Pendulum, Scale 1, Refrain the Melodious Songstress. 1600 attack, 800 defense. As a Pendulum spell, you can only use the effect once per turn. You can target a Melodious fusion monster you control. Send a Melodious monster from your deck to the grave, and if you do, the targeted monster gains attack equal to the sent monster's level times 200 until the end of this turn. So boosts the attack. That doesn't work with all of them. Notably, there's Bloom Diva, I think it is, the big boss fusion that actually wants to have as few attack as possible. It works kind of like a Makonko. It hits something, you don't take damage. They take effect damage based on the difference, and then you blow them up. So if we lower our attack, it's actually better. This one boosts. We do have some big ones that this could benefit, but it's not working with that one. As a monster, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Melodious monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card. And as a Pendulum, that's pretty cool, because we can keep repeatedly doing that over and over again. But even if we don't, it's just a Stratos. If a Melodious fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face up in the extra deck, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone. Okay, so you put it on the board, you make a Melodious fusion. This card has to be face-up in the extra deck. Oh, if you use this fusion material, it'll be face-up in the extra deck. The monster is then fusion summoned. Then you can place it in the Pendulum zone. Now you can give that Melodious monster a boost. Okay, fair play. Good little cycle going on there. We also have Couplet the Melodious Songstress. Okay, scale 9. That's actually really good. So some of the really good monsters in the theme are the Melodious Maestras. I think some of them are fusion monsters, but there are main deck ones. There's one that special summons, is it Lights or Light Fairies? One of those from your hand, and one of them grabs them from the grave to your hand, and I think they lock you into just light monster stuff, but the fact of the matter is that there wasn't an easy way to summon those monsters, or if you did, you had to go through like a whole bunch of hoops. By giving us a 9 scale, we can pend out our level 8 Melodious Maestra. I dig that. Couplet Melodious Songstress, level 5 Light Fairy Pendulum, 1200 attack, 2000 defense. Doesn't much matter that their levels don't line up because they're a fusion deck, not a Xyz deck. As a Pendulum spell, while it's face up, or while it is in the Pendulum zone, you can't Pendulum monsters except light monsters, can't be negated. I guess that's a reasonable restriction for a scale 9. If you control no face-up non-Melodious monsters, you can add a Melodious spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Oh, okay. So, as long as you're on theme, you get to get a spell or a trap card, and that's good. At least I think it's good. Because now I think about it, most of the Melodious spells and traps up to this point are not name-dropped, so I think we have to add spells and traps to actually get them in on this. And now think about it, the restriction is actually better than most ones, because some of the things just keep you on the archetype specifically. We can actually tech in any kind of light stuff in here and still pendulum them, so that's pretty cool. Okay, monster effect. If this card is added to your hand, oh, we can only use these effects once per turn each. If this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it for your normal draw, but if you draw it past normal draw, you can still do this, you can reveal it, special summon a level 4 or lower Melodious monster from your hand or graveyard. So it can be this one, when you reveal... No, it can't be this one, because this is level 5. I forgot about that. So this isn't special summon itself at all with that one, but a different one. I don't know how I feel about that one. Needing to have another setup on that one kind of sucks, because you can, like, trigger the effect and just whiff it, but... If a Melodious Fusion monster is special summoned to your field while this card is face up in your extra deck, you can place this card in your Pendulum Zone. Okay, so we Fusion summon these in a way that gets them in the extra deck, which would have to be on field. We can't Fusion summon them as material from the hand and get them there, because then they would go to the graveyard for that. But if we can get them onto the field, Fusion summon with them, they make a complete scale for us. Okay, first fusion, Spectacular Bach the Melodious Maestra, level 7 light fairy fusion monster. 2500 attack, 1800 defense, requires any 2 Melodious monsters as material. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon a Melodious monster from your deck. Pretty sick. Like I was saying previously, we have some Melodiouses that are a little difficult to use, so being able to just bring them out is huge. Your Melodious Fusion monster's activated effects cannot be negated while you control this fusion summoned card. Okay. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Melodious monster in your graveyard, accept a copy of this card, and special summon it in defense position. Okay, so this is just an enabler card. It doesn't have, like, big, like, finisher moves itself, but it helps keep our other Melodious Fusions safe by keeping their activated effects from being negated, though keep in mind that this is, like... No, it says activated effects can't be negated, but it doesn't say their effects can't be activated, so... Or their effects can't be negated. It's like a branded lost... Magical Meltdown kind of deal, but not this one. Specifically not this one. It does work in a different way. I believe the I think it means the activated... They can be, like, hard negated, like with counter traps and stuff, but they're activated... Because then you're not negating the effect, you're negating the activation. But once the effect is going, you can't hit it with an Ash Blossom or anything, or like a Veiler. Because you're not negating the activation, you're negating the effect, and that doesn't stop that. So that's pretty neat. So it gets you a Melodious on summon, and then it gets you Melodious from your graveyard when it leaves, and if it's sent to the grave in any way, so we can, you know, link this off. We can use this as fusion material for something, which is actually really good, because there are monsters that require Melodious Maestras, the extra deck ones as material, so that's pretty good. Okay, Flowering Etoile, the Melodious Floral Song, a level 8 light fairy fusion monster with 2800 attack and 1500 defense, requiring a Melodious Maestra and 2 Melodious monsters, like I was saying. Some of our monsters require Maestras. Okay, this is pretty intensive, though. It needs 3 material. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Quick effect, you can banish... Oh, we can only use the first effect once per turn. Quick effect, you can banish any number of Melodious monsters that you control until the end phase. Then you can return up to that many face-up cards your opponent controls to the hand. Okay. If this face-up fusion summoned card in its owner's control leaves the field by an opponent, you can special summon a Melodious monster from your deck or extra deck. So any Melodious from anywhere. Or any deck, rather. That's good. That's really good. So the more Melodious you have, the more it... like, the better it gets, the more of the board you can bounce. It can bounce anything. Okay, it can bounce face-up cards, so your opponent can't just, like, set 3 and you go all like, okay, bounce them all with Etoile. Which is a little disappointing when it comes to the removal. Generally, you want to be able to hit those kinds of cards because those are what's going to actually interact with you on your turn. But being able to hit that many face-up cards ain't that bad, and it does not target at any point. So, you can keep your opponent guessing on all that, which is pretty cool. And the fact that it floats... Now, this one, unlike Spectacular Bach, this one has to be our opponent getting rid of it. But when it does, we get any Melodious monster, and we have some bangers. But, you know, the material requirement is what's really getting on my... worry, Spectre. Technically, Bach summons the other material, so you only need one more on top of this one. If you have this be the Maestra, that's the first part. It summons another Melodious. If that Melodious also summons another one, and we do have a Melodious that can fusion summon by itself, so maybe that's how we do it. We'll have to double check our Melodiouses really quick. Give them a quick scan to double check to see which ones are relevant for these cards. All right, last card, Melodious Concerto. You can only use the first and second effect of this card once per turn. Number 1, fusion summon a fairy fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand, field, and or Pendulum Zone as material. Okay, that's really cool. So we can set those initial Melodiouses into our scales, fusion summon with them. Because they are on the field, they go to the extra deck when used as material, in which case they get reset. That's pretty poggers. Okay, if a Melodious Fusion monster is sent to your graveyard while this card is there, you can place this card on the bottom of the deck, then draw a card. Even during the damage step. Okay, so if it gets destroyed by battle. So, this does not say if a Melodious Fusion monster is sent to the graveyard by battle, by card effect, by your opponents. So if we get another Melodious out of the way, we essentially get to recycle this and draw a card, which we will be searching every turn, or presumably a lot, with, was it Couplet? I believe it was Couplet. Yeah, as its Pendulum effect lets us add a Melodious spell or a trap card. So not every turn. Well, I mean, I guess every turn, as long as it stays in the Pendulum scale, we get to grab our spell back every turn. The quick removal effect, but it's not, like, crushing our opponent. What I would love for First Movement Solo to just not exist anymore. And with the help of Refrain searching us monsters, that might come true. As well as Couplet getting us our spells. But like I said, this is not a Melodious card. It's a Movement Solo, so we don't get to use that. Okay, Aria, while the special summon card is on the field, Melodious monsters you control cannot be targeted by card effects or be destroyed by battle. This is a huge thing that you can pair with a lot of your monsters. Gives all of them targeting protection, keeps all of them immune from battle destruction. That can be huge, because destroying things by battle is one of the few things you can do without having to rely on any kind of card effect, and if you take that away, you are having to make your opponent use a limited resource or set up some kind of combination of cards to get rid of them. Bloom Diva is the one I was talking about, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Also, you take no battle damage. If this card battles a special summon monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the difference, then blow it up. So this is one that we want as weak as possible. And this one takes the Maestra and a Melodious. So this one takes one less material than our new monster. Okay, Bloom Harmonist, Melodious Composer. If this card is link summoned, discard a card. Special summon 2 Melodious with different levels from your deck to your zones that this card points to in defense position. You cannot special summon the turn you activate this effect except Melodious monsters. You can only use this effect once per turn. And if a Melodious monster this card points to attacks, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. So this is that link monster, and yeah, it does lock us into Melodious is kind of like First Movement, so I think we might just be relegated to playing a deck that doesn't have any non-archetypal monsters, which is pretty bad. But this does special summon both of our new Pendulum monsters, so if we have the spell, or really any fusion now that I think about it, if we have any fusion spell to turn those into a Maestra, those go back into our zones. Our level 4 searches us a monster when it's summoned by this one, and our level 5 will get us a spell or trap card once it's in our scales. So, the lock sucks, and it does require us to put 2 fairies on board, which, you know, we'll see if there are any good enablers for that one down the line. But for now, this gets better with their involvement, I would say. I think it makes more sense now that they are level 4 and level 5, because it feels like they were meant specifically to work with Bloom Harmonist. Bloom Prima takes a Maestra and 1 or more Melodious, gains 300 for each material used for its summon. It can make a second attack during each battle phase, and if this fusion summoned card is sent to the graveyard, target a Melodious monster and add it to your hand. Now this feels like one of the best cards that we can give that attack bonus to. What was the Determinator? It's 200 times level, and we have to send from deck. So if we send a level 8, that's 1600. This thing becomes a 3500 double attacker. And Bloom Prima does not have to attack monsters, which is a huge buff for things that have multiple attacks. So Bloom Prima gets a lot better with this support as well. Brilliant Rose, you can discard a Gem Knight or Melodious card, special summon this card from your hand. This is a rock, not a fairy, so we can't use this in combination with Bloom Harmonist. Though it's not even a Melodious card. Once per turn, you can send a Gem Knight or Melodious monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and this card's name, type, and attribute become the same original name, type, and attribute as that monster. So this can help with our fusion summons. It turns into a Maestra while setting up in the graveyard. Actually, this works out extremely well now that I think about it, because Brilliant Rose can send directly from our extra deck Bach, and then Bach's going to get us a Melodious from our graveyard if we have one in there already. So that's actually really good. So maybe we play more Brilliant Rose. And then it becomes a Melodious. So now it... Oh, is it only for a fusion summon that it's treated that way, or is it just that? Card's name... Okay, yeah, it is just no matter what. There are some cards that only count as a certain name or other statistics during a fusion summon, but Brilliant Rose actually takes on their name. So that's good. That's very helpful with that one. Cannon, if you control a Melodious, you can special summon this from your hand, and once returned, you can target a Melodious monster you control, change its battle position. That's, doesn't seem very helpful, especially now that we have Pendulums. Once per turn, you can send a Gem-Knight or Melodious monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's name becomes that card name. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish a fusion monster, special summon this card in defense position. This could also work out. We get to revive it off of banishing our fairies, our big fairy fusions, and then it gets to take on some names, so I guess. Elegy, special summon Melodious monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is special summoned, all fairy monsters you control gain 300 attack. This gets much better now that we have Pendulum Summoning, because now you can just pen this out of your hand. You don't need some other effect to get that. And then it completes the seal that, what was it, Aria started, because this doesn't protect from non-targeting effect destruction. This one does. Now, with all that on the board, we are still vulnerable to non-targeting, non-destruction removal. But, hey, you know, them's the breaks, kid. Fortissimo, once per turn you can target a Melodious monster, gains 800. You can send this card to the graveyard, fusion summon a Melodious, using monsters you control. Okay, so it's a part fusion, part boost. But, you know, it doesn't say Melodious on there. That's annoying. Almost as annoying as this not being, its pages not maximized out. Come on, okay. Okay, so we can search Melodious Illusion, but I don't think I've ever been quite a fan of this one. Target a Melodious. That face-up monster controls unaffected by your opponent's spell and traps and can make a second attack during each battle phase. So it's, like, powerful in, like, a I'm going to beat the crud out of you kind of way. And now that we can search it, I guess it's better. So maybe Illusion sees more play now that we can access it. Opera cannot attack the turn it's normal summoned or flipped face up. We don't have to worry about that if we Pendulum Summon it. If it's sent to the graveyard as fusion material, for the rest of the turn, Melodious monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. I do like this one, for sure. I think for a long time I didn't like this because it just was, like, bonkers. I didn't like the attack restriction on there, but 2,300 that you can Pendulum Summon out now that has the added benefit of just making your Melodiouses undestroyable for the turn. I think there's something to that. Ostinato, if you control no monsters, fusion summon a Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters from your hand and or deck as material. During the end phase of this turn, destroy the monster fusion summoned by this effect, and if you do, if all material that were used for are in the graveyard, you can special summon all of them. This card is really good. It puts you under no restriction, it gets 2 Melodiouses into your graveyard, and then the monster that you summon gets blown up, which isn't going to happen if you make Bloom Diva, though you will need the Maestras for that. I believe our big ones in the main deck are Maestras. Oh, they don't name... Okay, yeah, because they're light fairies. So we don't see them here, but we'll see them when we do a double check here. The point is that you can make Bloom Diva with this, and it won't blow itself up because it's immune to effect destruction. But if we summon something like Schuberta when we come up... Oh, or heck, we could use it for Spectacular Bach. Oh my god, that's actually really good. So we summon Spectacular Bach with out of our deck. We are 2 Melodious monsters. We don't do the Pendulum monsters because they're going to go to the graveyard. Maybe we do because they'll be revived, but that's neither here nor there. Ostinato summons Bach. Bach summons any other Melodious monster out of our deck. And then when it goes away, we summon back the 2 that we used for its material, and then we get another one out of our graveyard. Ostinato just got a lot more powerful. Alright, Schuberta. During either player's turn, you can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard. Banish them. This card gets 200 for each. The attack boost is not negligible because banishing 3 means it puts it at an impressive 3,000. And as quick effect speed, that does mean it gets to... Oh, and I'm finishing reading the effect. So, yeah, Schuberta has the Firewall text. This effect can only be used once while face up on the field. But if you remove it temporarily with Flowering Etoile, that resets. And that is a quick effect we can use on every turn. And while that will reset the attack value, it does also reset our triple DD Crow. Oh, that's going to be gnarly. I guess that also helps with Ostinato, right? Because if we quick banish, temp banish the monster, when it comes back, it won't be under the Ostinato condition. So we could do that. Oh, okay. We're learning a lot of new things today. Score during damage calc. If this card battles, you can send this card from hand to graveyard, change that opponent's monster attack defense to 0. This is kind of like the dishonest of the group. Not really a fan of this one because it doesn't do anything outside of that one, so use at your own risk. Serenade. This card can be treated as 2 tributes for a tribute summon of a fairy monster. After this card is special summoned to your side of the field, you can normal summon a Melodious monster in addition to your normal summoner set. I think that's going to fall off now that we have Pendulum Summoning and easier access to our special summons. I don't know if we'll really need this as much. Though if we pend this out, that's more normal summon, so Solo. If your opponent controls more monsters than... Controls a monster and you control none, you can special summon this. When this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Melodious monster from your deck. This one was always pretty much a concession to how difficult it was to special summon things. I don't think Solo is going to stick around for much longer. Sonata, if you control a Melodious monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and while this special summon card is on the field, all fairy monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. Now, Sonata is going to be one of our big monsters when it comes to getting Bloom Harmonist into rotation. It's a free special from hand that doesn't require us to have a scale. We just need to have another Melodious. Special summon this, make Bloom, off to the races. So I think Sonata, we're going to see a lot of this, and outside of that, a 500 point buff just for summoning it using its own thing. Like 1700 is the base with that effect. We get 2 on there, that's a 1000 point boost for our entire field. That's not nothing. Soprano, when this card is special summoned, you can target a Melodious monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Once per turn, you can fusion summon a Melodious fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as material, including this card. Okay, so that's the thing. We use Ostinato. I think we give up on using the floating effect on Ostinato at the end, because that takes until the end of the turn, and that's too long. But what we can do is use Ostinato, send 2 Melodious monsters to the graveyard that we want to revive, but not necessarily our pendulums, but ones we want to revive. We use its effect to special summon Soprano out. Soprano gets one of the monsters that we sent to graveyard, so that comes back. And then we can fusion summon Soprano, Maestra, and we could like normal summon whatever we grab back to our hand. Or one of them is Sonata, we special summon it, now we have everything we need. Does this only monster on the field? Yeah, it only uses monsters you control, which is something I didn't like about Soprano, but now we have a great way to put monsters on board with Soprano. So this is a good in-archetype fusion effect that we can use now. And then when we get the sent to graveyard by fusion material, we can summon back one of our other monsters. Maybe we can get back Soprano. I don't think these effects are once per turn, so... The effect that adds a Melodious back is once per turn, but the fusion effect is a soft once per turn. So that's a good way to stack our fusion effects. Tam Tam, if this card is special summoned while you control a Melodious monster, add a Polymerization from your deck or graveyard to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon, target a Melodious monster you control. It loses 500, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. This is supposed to work with Bloom Diva, because that makes its effect even more potent, and it preeminently burns our opponent for 500, which is pretty cool. Okay, nifty, nifty. Let's go ahead one more. Let's go ahead and change to card name so that we can check out the Maestras. Which ones have we not covered yet? Okay, so Mozarta. Once per turn, you can special summon a light fairy monster from your hand. You cannot special summon other monsters that turn you activate this effect except light monsters. So that gets a little not as good with the pendulums because it locks us into light. Whereas the pendulums only work with lights. This one just locks you into lights no matter what, but you might end up building your deck that way anyway, and it might not matter. Though, once again, it does kind of lock out your extra deck, but, you know, a lot of our stuff is doing that anyway, especially the Link monster, so that might not matter. Just the fact that you can get more monsters out of your hand could be helpful. And it is a Maestra for our Fusion monster effect, so it's good to keep that in mind. So, Shulpina, you can target a light fairy monster in a graveyard. Add it to your hand. You cannot activate non-light monster effects during the turn you activate this effect, but it gets you back a light fairy from your graveyard, so, hey, there we go. Okay, so we've done a quick tour of the archetype. So, thoughts. Bloom Diva was a cool monster for its time. The game has pretty much progressed past it. There's a lot of ways to get rid of a monster that can't be destroyed by battle or card effect now. The Aria bonus that keeps them untargetable is also really helpful, and does get around a lot of stuff. I think we're moving slowly away from a lot of non-targeting effects, and we're moving back towards targeted interaction, so being able to benefit from that is going to be pretty slick. Having a repeatable way to search our Melodious is pretty cool. Being able to pendulum some of them out is pretty nifty. The attack bonus on this one, honestly, that kind of just makes Bloom Prima. I think it's Bloom Prima, right? Yeah, Bloom Prima is kind of our new game ender right now. Because, yeah, Mozarta is 8. That's 1,600. That puts Prima at 35. Plus whatever extra attack power it's getting from all its fusion material that we're using. We set up all the other ones on turns that we aren't going to be able to attack for game, and then we use Bloom Prima as a way to punch over our opponent and end things. Light Fairies... We can pendulum summon light monsters. Maybe we combine this with stuff like Guiding Ariadne. We don't keep it in the scales to benefit from the not having to pay for our counter traps kind of deal, but hey, it's a light fairy. We can pend it out. When it's destroyed, we get a free counter trap, so... Melodious always struck me as more of a control deck than anything else, because there's a lot of advantage gaining and a lot of monsters that win the game slowly but surely, so maybe it techs into that one. Light Fairies have also got a lot of help in the ritual side of things. Maybe Cyber Angels get teched in here somehow. Ben 10 is basically a search card for the entire theme as well, so there's that. I just wish there was more here that, like, blew me away. Like something like Repair Genix Controller. Something that really, like, puts Melodious on the table and says, answer me or you lose. Technically... Flowering Etoile is pretty good insofar as, like, this triggers if it leaves the field by any way because of our opponent. It's like Mirror Jade in that regard, and we can replace it with any non-Etoile Melodious monster from anywhere. So we could get back a Bloom Diva as a way to, you know, punish our opponent. We can get a monster like Bloom Prima because it being Fusion Summon only really matters insofar as the material used for its summon giving it a boost, but I don't think that's particularly relevant. And, you know, we now have a cool... Aside from Ostinato, we now have another fusion spell, and it is a searchable one at that, which I am very, very happy for. God, I just wish that things like Ostinato and all of those were searchable by this, because can you imagine if we were able to put Couplet in the Pendulum Zone? We use the effect, search out Ostinato, and get the combo ready like that. Like, that would be fantastic. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers. I'm not quite as hopeful for its capabilities like the Mahjong Dragons were yesterday, but I trust that there is a way to make this at least up to modern standards using these cards. And, you know, I can't deny that being able to bounce my opponent's field at a moment's notice to make sure that they don't have anything in our way to attack them, that's not nothing. That is something. So here's hoping that there's something that I'm missing, because I would love more than for anything else for all of this to be as busted as possible. Once again, let me know what your thoughts are down below. I'd be curious to see if there's anything that I'm missing. It's been a long time since we've covered Melodious. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe there was some community of Melodious players who have been hiding in their dark archives for many ages, writing sonnets in their dark halls, in their grand opera houses, and they have yet to reveal themselves until this time. So, if you are such archivist of ancient knowledge, please, down below, let me know what your thoughts are, what your ideas are. And of course, make sure to check out the full Melodious video if you want better context. I know we basically went through the entire theme in about like 15 minutes or so, but I promise you it'll be a bit more educational if you watch it in its intended format. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GOLDENNOVA at checkout. Today's episode was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders Frankie and Marluxia is a Girl, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Andrew Newman, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Dark Dragon X830, Emily Chan, Eric, Aaron the World Breaker, Garland Chaos, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Hydracraft 135, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Mana Charge, Marion James E. Picata, Mega Combi, Millennia Asta, Muzuki Clark, Nathan Vig, Natiel Lee Alexander, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sammy Haim, Serenity Towns, Sir Knight JCB, Sim Antares, The Wizard Moose, URTV 667 and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Alpha Sly, Almento 5010, A Random Pup, Ariel Kersey, Beluga Masta, Blitzwolf, Blue Gem, Borger with a Shotgun, Chaz Ghost, Corbinisms, Danny Bound, Dr. Reaper RIP, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Herbal D, Inblink, Jester Designs, Kale the Dragon, Carp, Kevon Public, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lemon Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, Mick Spoofy, Michael Shimabukuro, Mustafa Aiden, Nitromo, Shizuki Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, Taylor Seymour, the legendary Raven, and Zaldreka, as well as the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits, and many other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you checked out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member.